Danny's not gonna be here tonight, so, but I do have a little bit of an update from him. Going forward. We have only a couple of items on the agenda this evening. We're able to get you out of here and get back to all our business.
I'm leaving early anyway.
I told you that. You wanna walk us through the two that we have?
Yeah, you ready now?
So we're gonna come back to the mapping and agenda item.
Yes, yeah, we'll come back to the mapping agenda item, and we do not have minutes to review yet, so. Let's go into it.
So the applicant is, or the owner is Andrew and Kimberly Dallas. You might remember them, they were out on that point, what's the name of that?
Used to be Baxter.
Baxter Point, they built a new home out there. 310 Woodland Camp Road, Great Thorn. Andy's here to represent them, so he can probably explain a bit better than I can what their plan is.
Okay, Andy.
Well, it's pretty de minimis, actually. So they have two sheds on their property, one of which was the victim of a tree last fall. There's what the color picture looks like.
Yeah, nice.
You guys got to get a color copier, Nick. Jeez.
Yeah, that shows it a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't know where emotion is yet.
Yeah, you can look out on the cold lake beyond it. And so that was the one. Well, you do have a site plan also. Oh, you didn't get color on that one either. Okay.
Yeah, so that was the one up close to the replacement house that they were in for last year.
Which is.
So this would be North Upper Point.
So on the left of the color of on the diagram on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it was labeled pump shed.
Oh, okay,
That's
On
the
the-
one that the tree fell on?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. And then, so you've got the main one that they replaced. There's another one over on the east side farther down. And then down in an island in the driveway, there's a small shed that's still existing. And it sits right by the power pole. CMP's in the process of replacing that pole. And that's the one that actually provides service out to the south end of White's Island for the Whitkins. So they're gonna be replacing that. And in the position of that shed, they wanna put that propane. And so what they wanna do is take those two sheds, combine the square footage, and put a new shed tucked right against the south side of their second principal building. And,
Okay.
yeah, so they want to put it right against the south side there, because that's out of the way of the access and everything. And I asked them, can't you just scoot it around the corner? And they can't because the septic tank's right there. That's that spot right there. And then this will involve taking out two hazard trees that were also a victim of that same storm, and they're not looking too good. So those are inside the proposed footprint. And then between the proposed footprint and the camp road is a significant oak tree number 236 on there. So that's why they decided to pump that where they have shown it.
So the two sheds are gonna eliminate.
Correct.
Or one's already been eliminated, the pump shed,
Yeah.
basically. And then the second is the one that's labeled shower and utility building.
Yes.
That's 59 square feet.
Yeah, so they're taking the square footage from those two and putting it into a 13 by 13 foot shed. And the floor area is a match. The footprint is, if they build it with 12-inch roof eaves all the way around, there's going to be a 1 square foot reduction. So essentially, that's it
Andy,
in a nutshell.
present structure, you add those two together, it's 168. Not that it makes a great deal of difference.
Okay. Well, we're probably more interested in footprint than in floor area anyhow,
Right.
from a
And
environmental
the use
standpoint.
of the new building, is it gonna be a combination of the uses of the two?
I think it's just gonna be storage.
Okay, so
I
it'll
thi-
be
I think
a
they-
shower, utility building?
No, it'll be a
and
dry
whatever The other
building.
one was pump house.
Right, it'll be a dry building.
Didn't it say, maybe I misread this when I looked at it earlier, I thought they said it was gonna be for propane tanks.
Well, to make room for propane tank.
Yeah.
They can't put one of those big propane tanks
Right next to the house.
next to a structure. It has to be away from the structures. So that where they want to put it in that island right by the CMP pole,
Oh, okay.
there's a structure right there where they want to place it. So they want to get that structure out of
I
there.
got you.
So no matter how you slice it, what they're asking to do in terms of numbers, right? You're not gaining, you're not making anything, you're
It's-
not increasing in non-conformity in any fashion
Right,
from that perspective.
correct.
You're not proposing to move closer to,
Yeah, the pump shed was like 18.9 from high water mark.
29.5.
And then the shower building, 23.5.
23.5. Got your glasses?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Well,
Teasing you.
the copies aren't the greatest.
It's okay.
What's the height gonna be, like 12 feet or something like that?
It's gonna be under the eaves of the existing building.
Okay.
So it's not gonna be very high. I doubt it'll be higher than 10 feet.
So this is, I just wanna make sure we talk about this. So the pump shed is 18.9 away from the water, from the high water line. The other one, the shower utility building is 23.5 away from
Right. And this is proposed to be 20.
20, right? So,
So
right.
it's kind of midway between the two.
Right. I've never asked this question before, but does it make sense that, because we have two buildings, but each with respect to the water are at different distances to the normal high water mark. The proposed structure is greater than one distance, but lesser than the other distance. How do we handle that?
I had the same question because it seems like there are two standards in play, and correct me if I'm wrong. One is no more non-conforming
Right.
than the existing, and the second is move back to the most practical extent.
Right.
We have limitations of the septic system, some large trees. But it's, I don't know how, particularly given we're on a peninsula, I don't know how you handle the, this, it being sort of in the middle of the two setbacks.
Yeah, well, the larger of the two existing sheds is the one that's closer. And so if you come back 18.9 and do that square footage, and then start into the other one, you're increasing conformity, sum total. No, you're increasing conformity.
So even though one of them is 23.5 from the water, it's gonna be more than 23.5 if you add it.
Right, so
If you consider that one building is in front of it and the other one is behind it, it's not any closer than 23.5. Because
Right.
the other building.
yeah, so if you start, in other words, if you start at 18.9 and exhaust that bigger building that's existing,
Mhm.
you're gonna be behind the 23.5 by the time,
Mhm. Yeah.
long before you exhaust that square footage.
I was just curious, if for those of you that have been on the board before I came, is there a precedent for dealing with something like this?
If there is, I don't recall ever seeing it. As long as I,
The only thing I really see as possible, we can discuss this too, is that each structure is grandfathered where it is. If the two structures could be rebuilt separately and be back further versus combining them and now it can't get back further, then I think we could argue that you've gotta keep them as separate structures if they can go back further being separate. But if they can't get back any further than what this is anyway, I guess I would see that they're just relocating the structures to the greatest practical extent, but they're combining them.
Yeah.
So,
You know,
does
it's
that
getting
make any sense?
everything into a
about
more compact package rather than spread out.
Environmentally, I don't see any problem with this.
Yeah.
right.
And it may be an improvement visually to the extent these are visible from the water.
And you're eliminating two non-conforming structures, and you're gonna have one non-conforming structure now, so.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Sort of.
But actually, three's becoming one,
Well, yeah.
if you include
Correct.
the main camp that it's being set right against.
At first, when I thought of this, I'm thinking, I guess I was thinking about it after I looked at the drawing, and I was like, geez, I hope these structures are further back than the main structure. And they are, obviously, but I was thinking, oh no, you can't expand a non-conforming structure that's closer to the water than the principal structure, but that's not the case here.
No, the principal structure essentially overhangs the water.
Yeah, right.
It's right at high water, and then they've got like a catwalk along the front of it. I think it's so they can wash the windows, wash the outside of the windows without getting into
Without
a
using the boat.
boat.
Are all these trees pines that are being, the two,
The-
not that it matters what species they
They're,
are, but I'm wondering.
yeah,
if
they
there's
are
any-
white pines.
Is there any discussion of, with the client of replanting, assuming that the point system, maybe the point system's already met in this area, but if not, I would suggest that, yeah, they can be removed if they're hazard trees, but we might want to condition the replanting of 6 or 8 foot replacement trees.
It's just 2 trees, right?
Yeah,
Should be three.
Three.
Right.
3?
So one,
No,
two are
two.
hazard and.
No,
the other
2.
just two.
The other one's staying, that's why.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
still
staying.
trees.
Yeah, 236
Kind of
is
a
staying.
limit.
We
Oh,
don't-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
a limitation.
So it's
That's a
only two that
limitation,
must
yeah.
not-
I got you.
Got it, thank you.
and yeah, the two that are there. Let's see, 237. I can't remember how big that is. I do have a tree table if we really need to know, but the top of that got snapped off in the same storm. So it needs to go as a hazard tree. And 238 is only a 6-inch. That
And to get back to my original question, is there some place in the application that I've missed that says in black and white that this is gonna just be used for storage and not bunks or?
I don't think that was put into the application. If you need to address that.
I mean, I personally think it would be a
Condition might be
good idea, and
appropriate.
it could be handled with a simple addition of a couple of, adding the word storage to the proposed construction on the application and initial.
I'm fine with that. I mean, quite frankly, when you look at the page on the second piece of the paper, would be page 3 of the application under issues, there's a description there And while it doesn't say storage, when I read it, it feels like they intend to store.
Would it be perhaps more appropriate, I don't know, what you're thinking, essentially saying it shall not be used as dwelling space. I'm just thinking, one thing we really don't, I'm not sure we have the authority to say it has to be storage or whatever.
No, but I was just, if that's what they intend to use, if that's what they're applying for, then say it.
Right.
That was my only thought.
Right.
And the foundation, is this just gonna be on pad?
Yeah, it'll,
By hand tools.
Oh, hand tools, right, so.
yeah,
it's
so
just-
there's no earthwork proposed except for
Okay.
minimal leveling of
Yeah, I remember that.
blocks and
Okay, thank you.
Because it sounds like when I read, that came back to issues, but they talk about problems, storing propane tank, and it implies that they want to be able to have this structure to do so, but they don't say they intend to do that.
Utilities.
no, they're getting it out of the way of their utilities.
Yeah,
Because Fabian won't put a tank over a certain size near a building.
Right.
It's fire code.
They'll do like 100-pounders, they'll do 200-pounders, but anything bigger than that can't be
Yep.
adjacent to a building.
yeah.
I ran into the same problems with our emergency generator.
Yep. Okay,
They have called it an accessory building, their intent is not for residential use. So if you see something that needs addressing,
yeah. George, like what you were saying, I'm thinking at the same time, Rich's suggestion about clarifying where we have probably authority to do so as a condition, to state that it shall be not a dwelling unit.
Yeah, it's up to the board.
That's fine.
It's just a thought I had. that-
Would be that,
I
I'm leaning
think
that
the
way.
main thing to me is it's not used as another bedroom or something like that.
Right.
Wouldn't that be illegal anyways?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't that be illegal anyways?
Yeah,
but who would check on
it? Who would check on it?
So who's gonna check on it anyways?
That's what, that's what I'm thinking.
So now are we just making a rule?
Yes, even if they turn around and sell it 2 years, whoever buys it, turn around and say, hey, let's put a bedroom in there. Who's gonna check?
It's not gonna be attached to the
You know,
house.
so.
It's a shed.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, as far as the bedrooms go, they're limited by the septic.
Yeah.
And
I think
they do have a
one of us,
new
we could
5-bedroom
just put it
septic, and they do have 5 bedrooms currently. So adding a bedroom would be a violation.
Yep. Just to ask an obvious question, if one were to say, oh, one of the buildings is 23.5 away from the normal high water mark, could you move this proposed building back away from that easterly shore back to 23.5? Sounds, if you kept the same dimensions, it would run into that tree.
Yeah, not without taking out that tree.
So that's the
We've come as
balance.
close to the tree as we can.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we hear that out.
But even if you do that, how close to that shore would you be? Because apparently there's water on both sides of it.
Right, because right now it's at 20.
Yeah.
My way I was phrasing it was if you bump that back to make it 23, if you do, then you run that very good resource that's there, so. So the moving back to the greatest practical extent is really the answer. Do we have any more questions for the applicant? Or concerns to express? I guess I would always, again, state the obvious, this is a high visibility project, anyway. And as soon as someone hears a hammer out there, these guys are gonna get the phone call, so that's what we're trying to ask.
Well, I think they've set a pretty good stage with what they've done in the last year, replacing the biggest principal structure out there. I know when I'm on the east side of Hoyts Island, so I go back and forth through that channel all the time. And the first time I came out and saw that, I said, wow, that thing looks like it's always been there.
Yeah.
The one that they've got there now.
Yeah.
It doesn't stand out.
Says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest part of that is the 20-foot height limitation as far as the visibility aspects.
Yeah.
I think that really makes a difference on the visibility.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Do we care about we just pretty much have the the pitch and the drip edge, in other words, a condition there, or?
I would say so.
If you'd like us to put stone line drip edges around it, I'm sure this client would receive that favorably.
To me, it would be consistent with all the other.
We did it with the other,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what I.
the prior proposal.
So does anybody have any other questions for the applicant on this or concerns? So I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the application as submitted with two conditions. One, that runoff of the roof be handled according to DEP best management practices, and that 2 replacement trees be planted no less than 6 feet tall and no further from the water than where the 2 removed trees, 2 other trees are removed, and preferably pine.
So we have a motion on the floor with 2 conditions.
Second.
Second, any more discussion? I have a question. Do we want to have a 3rd condition that says that this shall be,
Utility use only.
a non-residential or something to that effect?
Not be used as dwelling space.
Thank you.
I'll second that as well.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor with, it's been seconded with 3 conditions. Nick, are you okay with what we said? I know we said a lot.
Could I recommend one clarification? How
Please.
about using the word accessory? Because that's more consistent with your ordinances.
Good idea. So for that 3rd condition, to use the accessory structure shall not be,
It'll qualify as an accessory structure rather than a principal structure.
Right.
great. Thank you.
That's what's on the application.
True. Great.
Structure's not attached, right? It won't be attached, just, I mean, if it's attached, it's
Yeah.
part of the principal structure. Can't get.
Their
around
intent
that.
is not to attach it.
Yeah.
They may set it so that one roof drips on the other and then it goes down in between, but
Yeah.
we designed it to stand separately with all the criteria we gave on the footprints. We gave full credit for the footprint, even if it does tuck under the eaves of the other one.
Yes. It's like this. It will still be separate.
Yeah, the other one's got a hip roof, so it really wouldn't put that much drainage down onto the lower roof.
All right, so we've got a motion on the floor, it's been seconded, we've had some clarification, some discussion, anything more about this? Therefore, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed? Approved, the permit will be mailed to,
P.O. Box 234.
yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
all set? Okay, next one?
Next one is located at 686 Falls Point Road. The owner is Pete Ferret. Representing him is Doug Frame, who's right behind him. And the applicant wishes to enclose an existing deck and porch, and then construct an 8x18 deck in addition to that. There is a drawing attached.
So is this a non-conforming structure?
Yeah.
On a non-conforming lot.
Yep, correct. So the deck to the rear on the road side is the one that they want to close. 8x16.
Here you have some pictures that might be helpful.
Yeah, it will be.
Right.
Yeah. You want to hand them to them?
Sure. First one is the deck, another one is the porch area. Thank you. Welcome. So the, mind if I talk?
No, I'm glad you are.
So I think the first one that you all have is the deck. That's an 8x16 deck at the rear. What you'd like to do is put just a breezeway there, frost wall slab, just an entryway at the rear. And then the porch area, the covered porch area, which is essentially there, would like to just enclose that and make that part of the existing bedroom that's down there. And then the third piece is the deck, which would come off the upper porch there. And I think you can kind of see the stairs that come out the side. The deck would not extend past the existing stairs that are there.
So, Doug, on the second page, on the left-hand side, there's a handrail.
Yeah, those are the stairs.
And that's
Yeah.
That comes out a few feet from that front.
It comes out about 7 feet 10 inches.
Peter, I don't think that we can count the stairs as a setback issue for expansion. I think if we go through 13,
Paragraph H.
it says attached stairs or ramp. Now, I'm assuming these stairs you're referring to are less than 6 feet or aren't greater than 6 feet wide.
Correct.
It says attached stairs or ramp not to exceed 6 feet in width shall be permitted to be added to a non-conforming structure closer to the body of water. Water than the existing structure, provided that. So this paragraph implies that if it says no other reasonable alternative, the number of stair treads, the explanation of such as to what you need to comply with. It implies, it comes clear to me that given stairs an exception to be able to be placed on there without regard to setback if they meet these conditions. The kind of contrary to that is that other things wouldn't be allowed to be put there. I'm not sure if I said that right, but I think if this were a large 10-foot wide stairway or whatever, I think we could count it as the setback for the structure. But generally, stairs don't count as setback. So I have no problem with the enclosure of the deck out back or the enclosure of the front, but I don't think that we can permit the deck closer to the water, even though the stairs go that way.
Because if we don't include the stairs, then what would be happening would be increasing non-conformity by having a structure.
In
Right.
addition to not meeting the 100-foot setback for a new construction.
And the idea here is that if we counted every set of stairs that was attached on the front of the structure as the setback of the structure, then somebody could just expand all the way across the building. And there are numerous camps and things or houses out there that do have these stairs, and it would kind of fly in the face of keeping things no more non-conforming.
I see. So Doug, do you see what we're talking about there? So in this case, where the stairs come out like 7 feet, something inches, then we would not be, based on this paragraph H, we would not be considering that a current structure, if you will. That would be allowed for comparison's sake. So what we would be comparing is the front face of the building
Right.
behind the staircase. So my interpretation of that would be that a proposed deck going towards the water within 100 feet would be increasing non-conformity in this case. That's my interpretation.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see how we can prove that one aspect of it. Like Rich, I have no problem with the inclusion of the deck on the back away from the lake, or the closing of the covered porch. Just the expanded the new deck is problematic. By the way, I did just run the numbers. This doesn't come close to the 20% rule.
That's good.
It's such a small lot. It's the only reason I did it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's looking at that part about the proposed deck towards the water. The enclosure of the breezeway that Doug mentioned on the rear side of the where. What distance, Doug, is that from the water?
The front's 83, and then you've got 32 on top of that.
It's 115 feet, I think.
Yeah, 115 feet.
Great. And did I hear say a frost wall?
Frost wall with a slab.
Okay.
The house is on a full foundation.
Yeah. Perfect. Great. So it's outside of 100 feet, so otherwise I would be asking for the DEP certified contractor number, right? Because I'm not seeing it. It's outside of, am I overlooking anything where it's outside the 100?
Actually, the 100-foot setback's irrelevant in that
Really?
case.
It's under 250?
Yeah, it's whether it's in the shoreline zone or not.
Okay.
Just a question of whether or not there's going to be enough excavation to trigger that.
Okay. So you
So
think,
if it's, you know, if they're just pouring a slab, then
Could be a
that
frost
probably
wall.
won't be an issue. If it's going to be a frost wall, then it'll be an issue.
I won't think he's chosen.
Rick Dameron's gonna do all the digging, so,
Rick Hughes.
yeah. I've already met with him out there.
okay.
I don't know his number off the top, I don't know his DEP number, but,
I'm sure you can get it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we could handle that with a condition then.
Yeah, so if we feel it's gonna be a frost wall, I just wanna get that from Rick.
Yep.
No problem. So there's that. Any questions about the roof that would be part of this breezeway construction that we have? Is it, Doug, would be this
Gable.
extent?
It'll be a gable, because it's a relatively shallow pitch, so it's gonna come off there as an L, perpendicular ridge line.
So it's got 2 hours.
Yeah, off to either side.
Doug, do you foresee if they can't build a deck on the front, that they may leave the open area of the, I'm assuming they probably want something to sit coast on the water side.
It's a good question.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I know they were just hoping that the deck would work, but I don't have that answer.
They could put it on the side, but the stairs are that way. I guess.
Right.
Gary, a question for you in terms of, we have no reason to believe there'd be any problems, but in terms of enforceability, what's the best way to handle a situation like this where we would approve part of an application and deny part of an application? The same application.
I don't know, unless you have Doug amend the application to eliminate the deck.
That's probably gonna be the easiest, because if you take away, because 8 by 18 is 144, subtract that from 1728 back down to 1520.
Yeah,
1584, which is the original
and
number.
it would require amending the drawing. Could be done here.
Exactly. So,
Or both of those.
a question, Doug, I guess might be, I'm not sure if this would be acceptable to you or to the Ferris family, but if, because you see where we're going with the proposed deck part,
Right.
and sensing that we would not be approving that, would you care to amend the application here now in the drawing to reflect that?
Sure.
Or do you want to just do something different?
No, I think it probably makes sense to amend it.
So if you care to do that on the original, if you would do so.
Yep.
And just initial and date the changes.
And if you could, the drawing as well, please.
And we can double check, that's a good point.
What's that?
Roger is making sure that
Thank you.
number 5, the description part, does not have.
Yep, he did that.
Yeah, so that's good. I think that's the first thing to do. Thank you.
Square footage would change.
You change the square footage, so it should be 1584, 1584, 11.
Oh, he didn't write that again.
No, the only numbers we care about now are the final ones, which are 1584, 1584, 11, 64,
Should be 3 things that he changed.
Yeah.
So, right, there's no change. Okay.
And you, Nick, you said the construction of the 8 by 18 deck has been eliminated from the line above that, on line 5?
Yes, you can cross that out, it shows it.
Great, thanks.
So we do have space to put that on the side, if they can rearrange stuff.
Right.
Just so they know.
Yeah, Rich brought that up.
Yeah,
It actually
I mean, they really don't have room on the side off the living area. The bedrooms are on the side that they have space, so it'd be kind of awkward over there. It's an option, I guess.
This is 10-foot setback, 18 feet there.
The 10 or it's 10, not 15. Side setback's 10.
Yeah, it's 10 foot, isn't it?
I thought so.
I think so.
Might be back to see.
We just wanna make sure you have all the information
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah,
Did we keep side setbacks in our amended ordinance?
We didn't
proposed?
change it.
We can check it.
Kept it the same. In 686 Horse Point Road. Is that
first one past Bombazine.
past Bones?
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions for Doug? Have we addressed all of our concerns?
Just all iron.
And there's gonna be, we mentioned a new roof, right, on the portion that's being enclosed on the back. I'm thinking that would be an appropriate place to have a condition for handling the roof runoff. So if no other questions or concerns or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the application as amended with two conditions. The first be that the name and number of DEP certified contractor be provided to the CEO prior to the start of construction. And the second, that roof runoff from the enclosed deck be handled in accordance with DEP best management practices.
Second. I'm seconded. Any more discussion? Then Doug, that part about the DEP best management practices, we have some templates we can give.
Yeah.
Have them.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So, all those in favor? All in favor, none opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks for the photos, that always helps.
I
Yeah,
know.
it does, it does. Thanks.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, it is.
Especially color ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
So Gary will mail that, the permit?
The town, yeah.
Okay, so I'll text Rick and get his number and
Okay, all right.
make sure that gets on there before they send it to me.
Okay.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
you. Have a good night.
Peter, do you know Doug?
I do.
From Waterville, right? Waterville High School?
Yeah, they were Waterville High School. He has some older siblings that we were friends with, and I knew them from high school days. So it's been a while. Remember when he was a lot younger and a lot not as tall, a lot smaller.
Guess they were basketball players, weren't they?
They had some great athletes, basketball, I think baseball too.
Back in the days when Waterville was Class A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a change.
It is.
It used to be, back when I remember Waterville usually always beat Massillonsky in a lot of the sports, like baseball, oh, Waterville's gonna win this one. And it's like, what's Waterville now? Is it B or is it?
It might even be C in something.
Some sports, yeah.
Because they played Winslow last weekend and got trounced. So B I think. Anyway, so we got those two things done. Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate it greatly. Let's get back to the mapping thing. So I went to the budget meeting. The budget, what is it called?
A joint select board budget meeting preview. Meeting preview.
So there was no voting on anything. It was basically airing of articles and contents therein. So regarding our budget, Danny made note of an increase of, he selected it was $2,500. Is that correct?
2,500?
Yeah, to increase to account for our requests to have updates to the map done. So what I haven't heard from Denny, and that's why I was hoping he would be here, would be to try to have an estimate based on our agreement with Sewell to say, if we want to have X done, what type of cost could we expect? Therefore, for each of those requests that we might expect in a year, have our budget reflect that total. I don't know that detail. Denny arrived at $2,500 at somehow. Do you happen to know how?
Is that 2,500 total for the map, or 25 in addition to what we normally have for a budget or something?
I interpret 2,500 in addition to what we normally have.
How much do we normally get?
For a total budget?
Our normal total budget, what do we normally get?
I don't remember.
That's fine,
Isn't it somewhere usually around $3,500?
$3,500. Yep.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Didn't we lose some of that?
We had a higher number and then we lost that.
Yeah, right, they cut our budget last year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't wanna repeat the mistakes of the past.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like that $2,500 was pulled out of the friggin' air.
Yeah, we don't have reason to money.
You know, it needs to be based on our specifications of what work we want done.
Yep.
And an estimate for what that work is gonna cost, not
Right,
pulling it out, one of our orifices.
right. So that brings to mind something that maybe we could do, and that would be to provide an example of what we would want to have done. A written example, say, so he could go to Sewell and say, what would it cost for you to do this?
Right.
And because when I talked to him, I said, well, I know that what we had incorrect on the last version that came from Sewell was we had indications of some lots that were in the wrong, I'm gonna say zone, district. Is probably a better word. So correcting that, but that, I still think, quite frankly, I don't know why we should have to pay for any of that. That's not our doing. We didn't tell them to put that in like something that's in one district to be in a different one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, there was no mention by Danny of us getting credit from them for the work that they screwed up.
Correct. No.
So the money we've lost.
Quite likely. You know, because I think what we need to do is have information to Denny to say, we expected to have a map that met our current map in terms of accuracy or correctness in an updated format that would allow us to go forward with any types of changes that might have to be done. This would be in an up-to-date digital format and software. What we received was a map that was an up-to-date format and software, but was not as accurate as the previous map.
So is the scope of what we want just limited to that, or is it gonna include the changes to the map that we've discussed, including eliminating some of the wetlands from resource protection and possibly adding one or two of the ones that Inland Fish and Wildlife identified as being high value?
It has to me, it has to have all that.
Yeah, plus when we were discussing the map, I remember we were in the back room when we were discussing this, the current map has all of these, what the heck do they call them? They're non-shoreland areas, but they're districts. And we were going to tell them, get them out of there. It's making the map confusing by having, it's like the
Oh, the bog?
Kettle Hole bogs are zoned on that map, but they're advisory districts or
Have
something.
really no meaning.
And we decided at that meeting that we want them out of there. We want a shoreline zoning map that shows the shoreline zones, so people looking at that map know what's regulated, not
Right.
some kind of advisory things that
Right,
they wouldn't know what they meant.
that's right, that's right.
So
to-
that would be, I have something at home that when I went up to Sewell Company, I think it's at home in the file, I listed all of the things that we wanted done, like fix the districting, and the thing that you just mentioned, at the time, the new districts, or get rid
Right.
of these and whatever, and get rid of those advisory areas. There were
Correct.
some other things on there, it wasn't a whole lot.
So,
But when they then said, well, we spent our money, we don't have any more, and I said, well, you ought to be able to at least correct the districting for us, and because the contractor, whatever they called it, said they'd provide us with a map. And they said, no, we spent it all, we can't do any more work.
so would you, is that in digital format?
No, it's a handwritten thing.
Okay.
It's just a handwritten thing I gave to them saying this is what we need to have done.
Could you put that into a digital format
Yeah.
and send in an attachment to Denny?
I'll send it to the whole board. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say send to Denny, or send to Nick and CC the whole board and say, this is our original expectation. This is what was originally a handwritten thing that was given to them when you went up to talk to Sewell. They delivered something less than that.
Yeah.
To me, at the very least, they've got to correct what they didn't do. And we need to, so at no cost,
Yeah.
there's no reason on earth we should be paying for something that we didn't ask for.
Yeah.
None.
Well, the other thing is that the part of that agreement with Sewell called for them to provide us, I think, 2 copies of the map, and it's like, what good is 2 copies?
Of a erroneous map.
Yeah.
Zero.
So it's,
We need to have it corrected.
0 times 2 still
That's-
equals 0.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out, I guess I assumed we had a, quote, contract with Sewell, and Denny refers to it as an agreement or something. Apparently there's a difference between an agreement and a contract, but it seems like if you sign a contract that says you're gonna provide this, then you're supposed to provide this, not
Yeah.
half of this.
Agreed.
A letter of agreement's harder to enforce.
Right.
Yeah.
And I still think we don't have what we agreed to with them. That was spelled out quite clearly, and it should be corrected at no cost to us.
I'm just shocked that, the Sewell Company would do something like that.
I know.
I mean, that's not their reputation.
So, and maybe, I don't know how it got to that point, I'm not sure. Maybe the Mucky Mucks there, aren't even aware of this, I don't know. If we've got to bring in, whoever the executives there. to
Well, I
say-
thought Danny was bringing Mary, is that her name? I thought she
Mary.
was gonna be here tonight too.
Yeah,
Oh, you mean Mary from Sewell Company?
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know where I got that impression, maybe I'm dreaming it, but
well, I'm thinking, gee, Mary from Sewell Company says they can't spend any more money. Is she
Right.
gonna drive down from
probably send
Old
it,
Town? for
probably
2
bring a
hours?
bill with her for her
Yeah,
to
yeah,
a couple of hours,
Yeah.
right.
$150 an hour.
So it's my belief that what we need to express to Denny is exactly what you have already expressed to Sewell. This is what we expected, right? So what we got was not that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Although, the original agreement, when I say this is what we expected, the original agreement said that they were going to take that map there and basically, well, they were going to update my lack of computer thing here, remember the program was
Right.
outdated.
Correct.
They were gonna update everything and give us a disk of, going through and updating it to the new software or whatever. We got none of that, but my list of things includes some things that were not part of that original agreement.
Oh, okay.
So when I took that up there, you know, I'm saying, we would like to have all this done. And then he said, well, we spent our money, we can't. Well, I said, well, at least provide us what the agreement called for.
Understood,
So
okay.
like the getting rid of those advisory districts, that was not part of Denny. That was long before we even talked about
Yeah.
getting rid of that. But
Yeah.
their agreement was to provide us
I mean,
with
that's
the
fair.
old map
Yeah.
and updated format.
That's fair enough, but they still gave us doo-doo.
Yeah, we didn't get anything out of it.
Right.
We got a map
We
that can't even use for districting in
Right.
terms of,
Incorrect.
Yeah.
In districting. So I think if you would please address that to Denny, copy all of us. That's something he can take to, at the very least, and actually take to Sewell to ask for the corrections. And also ask from Sewell, in order to do any of these things that we're asking them to do, provide us an estimate. Then that would be what I think should be our increase in our,
So that would be our
Budget.
work spec.
exactly. That way we have some reasoning behind it.
It's too bad Danny couldn't be here, or at the last meeting when he said he was gonna be here. Cause I'm just worried, I just always worry in situations like this, how much of what we're conveying to Danny gets lost in translation to Sewell Company.
I know.
That's just so often the case.
Yep.
And it's not fair to put the burden on Nick. And I think Denny here needs to, I mean, if Rich is able to put something on paper, then that makes it a lot easier for Denny, but.
Right. So maybe we could talk about it for a minute. So in order to meet our expectations, if we could frame that email to say, this is what would meet our original expectation. And please do these things, right? For our next year's budget, we need to have these other things done.
Yeah.
Please, Sewell, let us know what that cost would be. Because our expectation is the total of those things.
Yeah.
We need a good map that's accurate and precise and without the errors that we now see. And we also need to see improvements, now that it's in this updated format, so we can go forward and have a map that's not confusing to the taxpayers of Belgrade. It is clear, it is accurate, and is without errors.
So yeah, one of my concerns is what did Sewell do? What did they spend their time on that consumed $2,500? Did they in fact complete conversion of the existing map to a new software? But they couldn't print it out because that was a dime over their budget or whatever
Right.
because the question becomes then, are we going to throw good money after bad? I mean, if we have literally zero, they didn't even accomplish that. I say go with a different contractor, screw them.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hire people like that a second time.
Right. That's a great point. I think maybe the fundamental question is to find out what they did. Is what they did, in fact, bring all the geolocation data for the town of Belgrade's shoreline zoning map, is that in an updated software format that then would allow us to go forward with things? If the answer is yes, then proceed with the list of things. Please make corrections and then tell us the cost to go forward and to make future edits. If the answer is no, I think we pull back and reconvene.
Well, it's certainly a factor to consider is timing, because I don't know if there was any discussion of this at the meeting of when we have to have that cost estimate of what it would cost to accomplish the work that we're specifying. When do we have to have that into a budget proposal that goes to Denny and the select board? To replace that $2,500 that was probably pulled out of the air. I don't think $2,500 is anywhere close to being enough, but
There's no discussion about timing. you know, our budget will begin next calendar year, right? So we have to have it before the end of this calendar year ends.
When is it that they normally call you and like other committee chairs in to, is that in January?
It's end of year, it's like December, I think.
In December?
Yeah,
So we don't have a lot of time.
we don't,
One other point is that when we do this and get this product, should our contract state that we own, or not? I don't know. Do we own the data? In other words, are they gonna give us all of that so that if we wanted to update it, we wouldn't have to go back to them, we could go to somebody else? Is that something that needs to be part of the contract, or don't they normally give up this stuff? They did the work for you, but they own it.
that's a good question, I don't know, we should ask that question. Because like was stated, you know, it wasn't a contract per se, it was an agreement. I think it's fair to ask who owns the data. In my humble opinion, Town of Belgrade owns the data. What they have done is provided service. We still own the data.
We make it clear, I guess, when we have it.
Yeah,
I don't know, Peter, if you know, or Nick, maybe you know, at what dollar amount, or at what point does the town go to bid versus just go to a sole source contractor like we did with?
My understanding is you can send out anything to bid. There's no dollar amount. If you guys want to go to bid, I think you guys can send it out.
Is there a dollar amount where, under which you don't have to, it's your option?
I'm not sure.
I only ask, like in the state, it's $1,200.
Oh, no, I'm not sure.
Under $1,200, you can go sole source,
right.
like what the town did with Sewell.
I can find out and ask Dennis if that's.
But
Yeah, Billy,
it just,
please.
it gets back to the earlier thing we were discussing, is it's, how far did Sewell get with our $2,500? Did they accomplish anything? Did they at least accomplish doing the software conversion, or that's not the right term, converting the mapping into the new GIS software?
Yeah.
If they accomplish that, then, you know, we got marginally something for our money, and it may not make sense to go to bid or go to a different contractor at that point, because you're weighing, you know, starting over versus building on what little you got for your $2,500.
Kind of like a pellet and de novo.
I wonder how much they charge an hour, because, I mean, if they charge $100 an hour, then it's just 25 hours worth of work. Yeah,
I'd be surprised if they charge that little.
yeah, so we probably got 15 hours worth of work, 12, 15 hours, day and a half work, then do it for $2,500.
Yeah, maybe
It's hard to
so.
know.
But that's why I think we should have Denny ask that first question, you know, what was done? Good question.
Is Denny planning to meet with us?
I can ask him to attend the next meeting. Make sure he doesn't plan anything or something.
We
Yeah,
need
the
him
election,
here,
we'll be able to do it.
please, we're begging, we are hurting units. The town of Belgrade will not have the map unless we resolve this issue.
So was that November?
This is a high priority.
Well, I mean, the reality, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is if we don't get this right, we don't get adequate monies based on reality into the budget that can be approved next March,
Right.
then that means we can't do anything with the map until the following March.
Right, which means we would proceed for a lengthy period of time with an inaccurate map, which is exactly out of, I don't want to say it would be illegal. It's certainly poor practice, because by law, that the map is what we're supposed to go by.
You know, it has legal.
It has legal, yeah, it has legal
I mean, it's part of the ordinance.
So I don't know how to phrase
Yeah.
that exactly, but.
Well, the worst case scenario is if we make a mistake because the map's unclear.
Right.
Or, yeah, unclear.
Right, unclear or possibly.
And we've run into that kind of question of, you know, what's the map actually say on some of those slope district
Right.
lots off Foster Point, and
Right.
it's the one thing I can recall.
That would be the worst case scenario, is have that. And then have a challenge in a court of law where the town spends money to defend itself only to lose. Because we would, in those cases where we're using erroneous information.
I don't know see, I was surprised that Denny wasn't here because he had sent us all an email, and I got the impression that was, you know, that he was confirming, among other things, that he'd be here.
Yep, just the other night, on Tuesday night, I asked him if he was gonna be here, he said no, he had other commitments, so that's what I found out. But we
Along the
beseech
lines-
the town manager to attend.
I'll ask him again.
One other thing is, if we, I know we're a ways from actually having a contract with Sewell and stuff, but when we are ready to have a contract, we've got to know ourselves what we're gonna do with those two wetlands, one down on Belgrade Stream and the other one on Belgrade Stream or the lower end of Long Pond. I think a lot of that's developed, and we wouldn't be putting that in,
Yeah.
proposing resource
I
protection.
think it's really
But we're gonna need to know what we're
just
gonna
that
do
one,
then.
really, yeah, realistically.
Agreed.
We might have to do site visit or a canoe trip or something.
Yep.
And we really can't write our specs until we've done that.
Right.
I mean, we can't finalize them, I mean, it's simple enough, but, and maybe we should put that on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss that.
Sure.
Because tick tock, you know,
Yep.
we don't, it's, 1st of November.
Yeah. Ooh. So you want at least one agenda item. Do we have any other applications coming in for? Okay,
Peter, when you're at that point, I have one just quick thing that,
please, let's go to that next point.
okay, I see Roger's chomping at the bit, but,
Right.
packing up. So you've all read about the chlorine contamination in this triangle area, including it goes into one of the homes in Pinewood,
Potassium or chlorine?
Chlorine.
Chlorine.
chlorine from the sodium chloride from the sand salt pump.
Yeah.
And I guess there's some additional homes along the construction area where that road salt.
Almost all the way up to JR's.
Oh, really, that far? Okay, Denny showed me a map on his phone, so not that DOT had created. I only bring this up for one reason only, is that it's something that we need to kind of keep an eye on, because if we get any commercial development review ordinance or subdivision ordinance applications in the area that's impacted, we're gonna have to somehow deal with the water quality issue in terms of drinking water. Not that it would prevent anything from getting approved, but like, for example, with this facility, we approved this when we were told there would be no water quality issues. They had tested the well there and said it was all okie dokie. The focus at the time was not so much salt, but you may recall was gasoline from the discharges that Christie's had back when they had underground tanks. And this is, you know, topographically down gradient. The good thing is this is a high yield sand and gravel aquifer, a lot of flushing, a lot of dilution. But clearly that was wrong. That was wrong information that we were given. Or let's put it this way, they didn't have the right information. And it's difficult because you don't plunk down a well in advance of building the building.
Right.
So that you can test the groundwater. So, you know, it's just something we need to be aware of, because probably a subdivision is very unlikely, but a commercial, you know, like the proposal next door for Dollar General or anything in this triangle, which the comprehensive plan is designated for commercial growth, commercial development. appears to be in that area. But the other thing Danny told me, because what I asked him specifically was, has DOT done a hydrogeological investigation to show the extent of the plume, of the contamination plume? They have, you know, the distribution of existing wells, but, you know, were they going to try to estimate what the full extent of the plume is? Usually that's done with groundwater monitoring wells and stuff like that. And he was under the impression they would, and they would be providing that to the town. So that would be something that would be useful for us to get, or
yeah, for situational awareness.
And this is just an aside, but remember, there was some discussion, and I don't remember if we had one of our meetings or what, that there used to be a sand salt pile right here. And I asked Denny about that, and he said he's never heard that before. And as far as he knows, the town well is contaminated with salt, or some origin is the DOT town when it was an uncovered pile
Across
the way. I didn't know that, but not that it really matters. It's just that it shows groundwater can flow up and over a hill. That's not what's really happening. The groundwater table is obviously at lower elevation here than over there, but so it's a little bit more complex than that. But.
Well, this topic about the contamination of wells was brought up at the budget meeting. Nick, you might remember that this was talked about. Well, it was talked about, and it started to get into some stuff, and that wasn't budget related, so it was sort of let's deal with that later. But I just bring it up because it is it's in the news. It was on channel, was it 8 WMTW? Anybody see it there? Mr. Riddle was. And there are definitely implications about this too.
Yeah, no, I saw interviews on one of the Portland stations of a couple of the residents.
Yeah.
I have to say, in their shoes, I wouldn't be necessarily as patient or as gracious.
Right. And so it was definitely brought up, and I think in the spirit of that particular meeting, the focus was, knowing about warrant articles and approximate budget items, monetary values. But it was brought up. It was talked about.
I mean, this, it goes beyond the planning board, but for the town, this is obviously a financial liability.
Right, exactly, and that was part of the discussion. That brought to mind something I wanted to mention when we get done this topic. So. Yeah,
and so the way just to wrap this all up, the way it comes back to our little world is that we have to make findings, whether it's a subdivision or commercial development, that there's going to be an adequate and clean drinking water supply. So it may, for example, if we knew that this well, before we approved this construction of this facility, was going to be contaminated with salt, the outcome probably wouldn't be any different. It's just that everybody would have known up front. You may recall the budget went over significantly for this project, and that was one of the reasons, was the after the fact decision that they needed treatment, for the salt, the reverse osmosis, which is a problematic treatment system because you create a lot of brine, and it's pretty high maintenance. For a developer, it's better, not just for the town, for our abilities, but for the developer of a future project, whatever it might happen to be. Better to know that up front.
Sure.
Because that's not only a cost, but it's a real maintenance headache.
Right, so if you want to look at things down the road, say you have a multi-year budgeting kind of planning cycle, you can say, oh, this is what we expect to have.
And you can't just dump that brine into your septic system.
Right, you have to dispose of it. So that's really good information. So we need to be aware of that. The town needs to be aware of that.
When I was at DEP, we looked at reverse osmosis for arsenic treatment and stayed very clear away from it because of the brine issue.
So is it okay to move on to the
Yes.
thing that
Yeah,
came?
no, it was just sort of something to think about.
So when we were talking, you know, at the budget meeting the other night, one of the things that came up was the fire and rescue folks were talking about their budget, and then there was stuff about one of the trucks, and, you know, whatever. But then it was made mention, hey, down the road, we might want to have a new, you know, maybe a fire station somewhere. Where might that be? Well, in the depot area. You know, so I'm not sure what that would mean for drinking water, but presumably they'd have to have drinking water somewhere. So that would be one of those things that, even with this topic that we're talking about, it could apply to things that you wouldn't even think about, like a new fire station. You know, in this area.
Yeah. Something like that would be easy to provide water for though, because it would be, you know, primarily toilet, and I assume they have decontamination showers, but minimal drinking.
Right. Yeah, potable.
I mean, you could do that with, they have under the sink counter, resin units that can take out chlorides.
So it's just one of those things that are impacted.
But yeah, but say somebody wanted to open a restaurant,
Right,
you know, like this is a public drinking water supply.
right.
A restaurant would be a transient public drinking water supply as well. That becomes problematic given the amounts of drinking water used.
So, anyway, that was about it. Was it 48 articles? Warrant article. I don't have any other updates. Does anybody else have any other updates?
Do we have a new board member?
We don't. That's a leftover.
Oh, from the other night?
That's a leftover name tag that was beneath the sergeant.
Mr. Kennedy, what was getting them doing more around it?
Yeah.
Looks like he's moved his building back a little bit.
Oh.
They're out there remeasuring. Monday they go out.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna mention to Gary, they don't have a lick of soil erosion control there.
Nope.
Right, and I saw what appeared to be a parking area or something that was, I was a little surprised at the size of that. I could be just wrong in how I was
Yeah,
thinking, so I'm
no.
not saying they
It's
do
always
anything
hard,
wrong.
yeah, it's always
but
hard to
it
visualize
just-
what you see on the drawing
As a
versus
matter
on
of
the
fact,
ground.
Tuesday, I think he was ditching right by the road.
So it might be worthwhile to have Gary swing by. Could you make a note?
Which place is this, Joyce?
What's that?
What are you talking about?
That
Kennebec
Kennebec boat,
Boat
the,
Oh,
the
Across
application
from
we
the Lawrence
approved this
property?
past summer. Yeah,
What used to be?
because the Phillies bringing in, some of it's coming from Pike on the road project,
Oh, yeah.
because there were Pike trucks there when I drove by today on the way to appointment I had. You know, it's right on the lip of that steep slope going down into that little drainage way.
Two other things, just an observation. I made sure to drive down to Belgrade Lakes today. I wanted to see how the road construction was. Craig lives it every day, so I know he knows what it's like. But I think they're making progress. When do they stop? Because it's now November.
I think they don't know. They need to pave them so it can be plowed. So I think where they've cut the pavement, I think they're concentrating on getting everything done and paved. And then
They pick it up in the spring.
probably.
Most of the paving batch.
I don't know, it's so hard, you know, those guys don't even know, and that Pratt company, they're not a very big company, they contract culverts and stuff to pipe all the time, but, you know.
And the paving batch plants like Pike, they shut down Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
With one exception, K&K and Auburn. They got two plants they try to keep on open.
Oh, they do? Oh, I didn't know that.
But you figure trucking it from Auburn up here,
Yeah.
So hopefully it's paved. I don't know how they're gonna plow it if it isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
They were putting the black stuff on today. Did you see that?
So,
Yeah,
I don't
reclaim,
know if they're gonna go any further than. what
Reclaim?
they have.
Yeah. Where, are they, you know, if they're still, are they working still up the hill, or did they stop, on 27? Yesterday I went by, they weren't excavating anymore. I didn't know if they were done as far as they're going, or they just weren't doing
what,
it.
Route 11?
Yeah.
Oh,
Are they
they're
Oh, they're still working there.
Oh, yeah.
I know they're working, but I didn't know if they were still excavating the, tar type stuff there that they.
Oh, yeah,
Well, that's all.
up near our end, yeah.
Yeah.
They got another 300 feet anyway,
Yeah.
if not more than that.
Yeah.
But,
The ledge just slowed them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, they really blasted a lot of ledge, didn't they?
woo,
I don't know if that was a surprise, I hope not. I hope they did, probes in advance, like, or ground penetrating radar.
Sticking right out of the ground.
Well, that's, yeah, you just have to drive by.
Yeah, there's a reason why some of those homes are on knobs,
Yeah,
right?
right.
yeah, the drill is gone, but they're gonna come back, because there's one guy there that you can still see the ledge, and they haven't even put a ditch in yet.
They'll figure it out.
I always get nervous when I see that because we had various contamination cases where either fuel oil tank trucks rolled over or gasoline trucks rolled over into newly constructed DOT ditches that they put into bedrock. Would spread like wildfire.
It's gonna be interesting, this one, some places they brought that up good 3 feet, then they come back and ditch.
Yeah.
Well,
If you're done, if you want your roads right.
yeah,
I think it's it, everybody.
can't leave you deep in the farmhouse.
You know,
Need drainage.
thanks, everybody. Thanks, Craig.